In this video, we're going to talk about several tips to help set you up for success with your ribbing and then also help you with some troubleshooting. First, most importantly, you have to understand that the ribber only goes clockwise. So if you are knitting a sock and then you want to start doing toes and heels, you'll need to take the needles out of work, likely take the whole ribber off of the machine, go back and forth to knit the toes and heels and then put it back together. And there's a separate video for taking the needles out of work that shows you how to do that. This is the working area, but also the fact that you can see the needles before they go back under the tappet plate, that they're really visible to you here at the front of the machine, is a huge asset to you. So you watch every single stitch as it comes by and make sure that it has knit, make sure that it hasn't dropped. This is your chance to fix it before it goes back around. I would also say it's important just to go slowly. Right? There's no reason to go super fast with your ribbing. Just go slowly and watch it the whole time. Another thing I do is I kind of find myself pulling a little bit on the weight down underneath just to help make sure that the stitches are falling in between the cylinder and the ribber dial. Sometimes they get caught right where the ribber stopper and the ribber dial come together. They have trouble just fitting right in that small space. So sometimes I will use a heel fork just right at that area to add a little bit more weight and tension to get past the corner. Let's talk about what happens if it isn't spinning. So if your ribber dial isn't turning at all, there are two to three reasons that could be happening. One, you might just have your sandwich bolt too tight. So you need to make sure that your ribber dial was spinning at all, that it actually can be pushed around the cylinder. If that was fine, then you might have a problem that your knitting is having trouble as it going into the tappet plate. So one, you want to check and make sure that all of your needles are open right before they go under. Sometimes that can jam them. And then make sure they're not caught. Sometimes they kind of get caught with the yarn right under here. So you can try to fix that. If it got caught and it's the needle with some kind of a knot has already pulled under the tappet plate, there's really no fixing that while it's on the machine. We talked about if the sandwich was too tight. If the sandwich is too loose, the needles can actually twist up underneath here, and that's not good at all. So it has to be pretty tight. It still has to be able to turn, but just loose enough to spin, not so much that there would be a gap there that the needles could twist around. And then if you continue to have trouble, you would want to check the bottom of your plate and make sure that these bolts haven't gotten loose. Like, you should be able to feel them and it should be pretty flat. They shouldn't be sticking out at all. If they're all wiggly, use that little wrench to hold on this side and get your screwdriver on this side to tighten them back in. If it's not getting jammed, but instead every time it comes around the needles aren't knitting, then your tappet cam might just be too far out. So you could push it in, loosen it, slide it in toward the center, and that would help pull the stitches farther. Right here is where you would watch for that. Right coming out from the tappet plate, you can see that needle is tucked all the way in. You want to make sure that's where the needles are actually pulling through to make the stitches. So by right here, when it starts to come back out, the stitch should be formed. If instead it's not pulling it all the way in, you'll still see the stitch on the needle, and then you'll also see the new yarn just looped on top, but it wouldn't have actually made a stitch. There is a separate video on repairing rib stitches that either didn't knit or were dropped, so that's worth checking out as well. Another reason you might be dropping stitches is if your yarn feeder isn't aligned properly. There's another whole video on ribber alignment to check out. And then finally, sometimes if I'm dropping cylinder stitches, I found it's because I have a run in the fabric and I didn't realize it. So it's tucked up under the ribber and I start dropping a lot of stitches and I can't repair it. turns out I have a run. So that's another thing to check. Well, with those tips and some good practice, I hope you have great success with your ribbing, and we look forward to seeing photos that you share with us on social media. Happy cranking! Visit us at deanandbean.com and please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.